Westbound to Tunney's Pasture. Direction West, Tunney's Pasture. Next station, Reno. Byward Market. Prochaine station, Reno. Plancher 5. Station. Byward Market.
For those of you who can't tell or can't see, they're anti-abortion advocates or activists. Okay, look, as far as I'm concerned, they have the right to stand out there and protest their freedom of speech and freedom of expression and for civil discourse. But, well, in my opinion, their views are less than, well, savory. But, on a bit of a different note, don't know if I'll talk about that more in this video. Outside the... Get my head out of the way. Outside the Parliament again. Yeah. Though I'm not entirely sure on exactly what side of the Parliament. Oh, and yes, no, not that. Don't want to do that. That cart that I had purchased, it's working like a charm, at least today. This is the first time I've actually put my sleeping bag into it. And, I'll also tied a blanket to it with a bungee cord. Oh. Well, that's a member of a motorbiker gang. I couldn't see what one, but, well, they have the symbols on them. Unless it's just someone in a knockoff designed uniform, which, well, they want to wear it, they can wear it, but anyway, one of the wheels is missing. Didn't discuss that in the last video. So when I was going back, or wheeling this thing back to where I was situated in Orleans, where I'd been staying, at some random point, the wheel just felt like it snapped off, and I looked around the entire surrounding area for it, where on the sidewalk, where it could have rolled away to, it was nowhere to be found. And I still have no explanation as to where that friggin' wheel went. I searched literally, I went back the next day after searching for 15 minutes straight around the entire, like, just perimeter of the area, gone. No clue where it went. My only explanations are that it just spontaneously combusted. That rare phenomenon happened where it's like a physics phenomenon where all the molecules in a mass of matter or an object would just have a 1 in a million chance of completely all splitting apart at once or diverging from each other and something being able to pass right through it, or it fucking clipped into the back rooms. I have no fucking clue. I have no clue what happened to it. But anyway, not dwelling on that, but yeah, I'm here now. This is interesting. I don't know what this, I guess this entrance to an underground area is for. It might be for, well, this building here. I don't know what company or administration this building is for, but it's very nicely designed. It's got a guard. It's almost similar to, please stand up straight. Thank you. It's almost similar to how, well, the French Louvre in Paris, France is designed, or at least how its top formation is designed, where it's like almost a 3D triangle shape that's somewhat on a bit of a slant at points, and but well, I don't think the Louvre has a garden on top of it. This one has actual floral stuff to it, just, well, leaves growing on top. I don't know if that's meant to symbolize something. No clue. Or if it's meant to be, for as much as I have been praising Ottawa for its actually somewhat well-maintained environmentalist work, other than a few things, it could just be done as a design, or it could be greenwashing. I don't know if if that honk cut off what I was saying. Greenwashing, I don't know if it is or isn't. I mean, well, if this is trying to do some environmental work, this is greenwashing because this is not doing a whole lot. It's human-placed dirt in an unnatural area surrounded by stone and brick, and it's very minimal. This isn't going to produce a lot of oxygen into the air, so yeah. I don't know if it's for that purpose, though. But anyway, what am I doing in the downtown area again today? Well, applying for more jobs. So, we have a long story short, I guess, so far. As of right now, the Newton strip club has not, well, reached out to me yet for well, possible position. Again, when I went there, the people were very nice, all for the most part. Things look well maintained, even though looks can be deceiving, but anyway, it went well the first time that I had actually gone there. But my funds are dwindling. Still, okay, I remember I said in one of the before the leaving the cottage videos, my funds were somewhere in between, I didn't give a specific number, but in between 10,000 and 20,000, what I have conserved. Right now, I believe they're probably at about 10,000 or 11,000. Well, in one of my accounts it'd be a bit lower, but anyway. Because, well, technically I can just, well, I have two accounts, but anyway. So yeah, job hunting. And also just showing the sights around here, because again, why not? There's still more of this city to explore. So, but first, let's just take inventory of me being the confused libertarian communist that I am. Let's take count of all the elitist bourgeoisie companies, or monopolizing companies, that I hate around this area. So first we have a Rolex, despise them. We have, well, okay, over there we have McDonald's, I despise them. Lower than that we have, well, over a ways on what would be Queen Street, we have, is it Good Fitness? Yeah, it's Good Fitness. I'm not particular on them from what I know of it. Again, from what I've heard, not great, but haven't exactly paid too much attention to them. Oh, and there's some chaps up there just washing the windows. Oh, I'm just trying to get something on the side with the end of a broomstick. I hope they're being safe about that. I don't think I would ever be able to do that job. It's incredible what they do. Obviously, in my opinion, it's a needed job to clean the windows, for the most part. And obviously they should be able to do it, but that's still very, very, well, at least to me, it's somewhat nerve-wracking. Even just seeing that. I'm sure they're probably used to it in some form. Or hell, maybe they don't want to do it, but, well, I don't know them, so can't exactly say. Yeah. Oh yeah, so there's also been someone shouting over in that side cobblestone street area, or that walking area. Oh yes, and Tim Hortons right there. I hate them as well as the various banks that are around here that really do just collect and collect and collect and charge up for loans, mortgages, and basically just aid in robbing people in some fashion or another. But that's not me saying I'm actually not against the concept of banks. I'm not against that at all, actually. But, well, it's just, oh, well, whatever right now. You can tell I'm not feeling the greatest, I guess, cognitively. As I mentioned in the last video, my memory issues and just some amount of my psychosomatic symptoms have been, well, mainly memory, have been very bothersome recently. And all I can do is just, well, all I know, even though I get scared at points, I know it's not, at least with how everything is behaving, it's not any sort of degenerative brain disease, so. Or most likely any sort of lesion in my brain. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of folk in suits and ties, so, like I said in my, oh, actually I should address this. In the, well, the fifth part of this series, I said when I was actually looking out towards the Parliament building from the Chateau Hotel, from the Chateau, I said that the homeless rate here and the crime rates. I said it's not as it definitely both in that regard, the crime rate and the homeless rate. Not like I'm not trying to say that those two are not the same thing. Yes, there are obviously people who engage in illegal activities who are homeless, but anyway, much of that is because of societal issues in and of themselves, but at least in my opinion. But anyway, the crime rate and the homeless rate here in Ottawa, not as bad as Peterborough or Oshawa, but I think, well, I didn't exactly address it. Again, my blurry memory. I literally just rewatched the video somewhat, like, I rewatched part of it, I rewatched part of it, like, 2 days ago. But I said, I might have briefly said that at least the, I might have accidentally jumbled in, like, the homeless rate and the crime rate, comparing it to Toronto being not as bad as Toronto. Well, no, I didn't exactly say that. I guess I mumbled my words a bit, or... Anyway, I just like to reiterate, the homelessness here, not the crime rates. I said this in the next video where I corrected myself, in part 6. The homeless rate here is far worse than Toronto or Mississauga. Oh no, it was Brampton. Brampton, that's what it was. It wasn't Toronto, it was Brampton. I say that it wasn't near as bad as Brampton. I guess I'm disputing. I would actually say maybe it's on par with Brampton in terms of maybe not the crime rate, but the homelessness crisis. I'd say it's about that construction tape is just flipping out. It's having the time of its life. Yeah, anyway, I would say that in terms of crime, it's maybe on par with Brampton. Homelessness, it's probably either on par or worse, which is devastating to me. I'm going to... Well, okay, actually, my main plan was, if you saw the first half of this already, the beginning clip, I was on a train. I was on the transit route, from farther in, over in more of the Gloucester district, after having gotten on a bus, which I was initially just hoping would take me all the way to at least close to, at least just a further ways down on Montreal Road, which would take me to the edge of, at least just take me to the edge of Gloucester, but well, that didn't end up happening. Again, I've been trying, I don't want to have to take transit, I don't. I know people call me stubborn for that, which, okay, here's another, I guess, thing that I forgot to mention about my personality and when I was in the video on ego death and how I was psychoanalyzing my own personality and persona. A few tendencies, I guess, I forgot to mention, or I guess, well, one of them in terms of behavior would be eccentricism, or being very, very eccentric, and also stubbornness. I can be stubborn. very stubborn points. But anyway, I'm going to, while looking for job occupations, putting my resumes at places this time or so, I'm going to try and head down into what is known as the Westboro district of Ottawa. It's up in the northwestern end of the city. It's just down a ways. I woke up really early to try and get prepared for this whole venture over there. I got out of, well, the place that I've mainly been staying at, a little... Geez, tell me how you really feel, hybrid bus. A little later than I would have liked, but anyway, I'm here now. So, and while I'm here, because I'm heading this way towards the apartment, I'm gonna try and actually get some better shots of it, because even though I hate most of the politicians inside it, it's a damn beautiful building, I'll give it that. Okay, never mind. I was wrong. I was half wrong. This is technically part of the Parliament, but it's not the main building as I thought it was. Because, god damn it, the architecture of our governmental houses are so friggin' similar. That over there is... Can you even see? I can't see in the lights. Down this road is the main Parliament building. Yeah, anyway, also, I should mention, okay, so this street here, I don't know if you can see the name, but it's called Wellington Street. This street is also Rideau Street, Montreal Road, St. Joseph, and then all the way at the edge of Orleans, it's Old Montreal Road. Like, and if I'm looking on the map correctly, I think even down a ways it changes its name again. I don't know why this road, which literally stretches, it seems, all the way through... Sorry. All the way through Ottawa. Let me just move out of the way a bit. This road that stretches all the way through Ottawa, I don't know why its name changes like every few blocks. Like, seriously, first it's Old Montreal Road, way far down in the suburban areas of Orleans. Then it turns into St. Joseph, and it turns into Montreal Road when you get into Gloucester. Then when you get closer here to the downtown area, it turns into Rideau Street, or Rideau Street, and right here, a ways away from Parliament, it turns into Wellington Street. And if I remember correctly, I think it also changes names again, down a ways. No clue why. Anyway, I'm gonna get down a ways there, and then, well, get some shots, and then turn right the fuck back around this way, because Westboro District is west. Okay, well, it wasn't a far walk, and just so we're clear, this is the main Parliament building, the main chambers that, okay, if I'm not mistaken, okay, either the House of Commons is in there, or it's in this building off to the side here. I'm not entirely sure what this part of the Parliament is for. This one resembles more of a church than the rest, somewhat. And, actually, oh, quickly to clarify, you see okay, so there's the chateau that I was at, the hotel. And over there, so when I went actually down St. Nicholas Street in part 6, and I gave that beautiful view, I got those shots from the little channel there at night, which was stunning to me. I said that there was City Hall, or it looked like it was, from what I thought it was, or from where it was located, and I guess what I looked at on a map, I thought that was City Hall, but I was wrong. That's not City Hall, that's actually, what's it called? I believe it might just be called the Government Conference Building. It's where the Canadian Senate usually meets, deciding on, well, what bills to actually allow to be passed through onto, well, first there's a debate in the House of Commons, then it's passed on to the Senate, then it's passed on to be approved by the Prime Minister, if I'm remembering correctly. It's either that order or it's switched around somewhat, but still a beautiful view. But City Hall is actually somewhere behind this building here, whatever this might just be, another ultra-rich hotel. As you can see, they're doing some construction to the land on, well, the Parliament campus. And anyway, so this would have been somewhat, okay, you already know my feelings towards the Canadian government and the Canadian economy. If you don't know by now, then I would say you're not to be rude, but if you've been watching my channel for a while, if you don't know my views on that, well, you're kind of tone deaf. Sorry. But, well, as I was walking, rather very sad sight, as I talked about that would be the sad sight. So that man's screaming. Okay, from what I picked up from just standing next to him and briefly just talking quickly. Well, okay, first off, I don't want everyone to assume that, as I talked about in one of these videos, that all drug addiction looks like that. It does not. These fuckers right here are, well, one, parliamentary security just literally for the surrounding area of the Parliament. Completely unnecessary police force. Absolutely unnecessary. As someone speaking who actually believes in, at the very least, a minimalist police force, logically, this is fucking unnecessary and ridiculous. And from what I've actually been hearing somewhat, it seems like they may be responsible for rather, well, pretty well just assault on those of lower... Sick sociopathic fucks. I want to go up and talk to him, but I'm a bit weary. I don't want to... Okay, the man isn't... in the immediate isn't dangerous, and I'm not going to assume that. I was talking to him briefly, just for a second, and I actually told him, in my opinion, he's not wrong about many of the things that he's saying. Some stuff, obviously, from what he's shouting, I don't agree with, but, well... there is some, I guess, from my own psychoanalysis of it, aggressive behavioral disorder in some way, and might be paranoia, but I don't know, maybe a bit of a psychotic disorder, but perhaps schizophrenia. And again, I don't want to don't take what I'm saying out of context. And again, I'm not trying to diagnose him, or at least in the, oh, well, he's over there. I'm not gonna film him without his permission, or not gonna try and aim the camera away. I didn't know that he ran up here. Obviously, I don't know him. I can try and get a read on him, but obviously I'm not going to concretely diagnose him with anything. I legally can't, and I don't want to. Or at least, you know what I mean. But he's in severe distress. And I don't blame him. Look at these fuckers. Look at them. Most of them walk by with their prissy little pristine, or they think they're pristine lives, when really, in my opinion, not so much. In many regards. And even those of more lower middle class status may look down upon someone like that. Many of them do. And raids on those who are accused of being dangerous without any actual evidence by dipshit fucking organizations like these, and you almost had me there. And that, well, it's disgusting. It really is disgusting. People think the police, and how it's done in the modern world, in pretty well every country on this planet, help protect people. They don't. I'm not speaking to every individual cop, how they use their power, because I don't hate every individual cop. I don't want to generalize every person in it, which I think on both the right and the left of the political spectrum, there is too much generalization of multiple different groups. Some may, okay, in terms of left-leaning point of view, for certain ones, there might be a more average of, but not all. And not everyone goes towards something for the same reasons. Whatever it may be, whether it's an ideology, a job, a passion, or, well, just a intimate hobby of theirs, social relations, it doesn't matter. Just, look at them. Okay, literally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just counting the cars, and then there's 3 parliamentary police there. There's a few I've seen actually just walking around the areas on the streets across from here, and even down by in the area that I, well, just started the video at. Just literally not even on the Parliament property, so, God. Jesus Christ. I don't want to generalize all police or politicians, but I'm going to say most. Unfortunately. In my opinion, it is most, and absolutely the systems are horrendous. So, yeah, for fuck's sake. I don't really know if I have, like, a clear train of thought, just to... Okay, you know what, let me gather my thoughts for a second. Alright, I was wrong yet again. This is apparently the House of Commons, as indicated by a map over there. That is interesting. I didn't expect it. Okay, so I know the Senate meets in that building. The House of Commons is over here, obviously, to decide upon what goes to the Senate. And this, I guess, is just for general... Well, the main parliament would be, I guess, just for, well, managing different branches of the government. representatives, I guess, from each level. Well, as nice as it looks, I don't know if you can hear down below here, there's construction. So here's another analogy, I guess. You look pretty from down below, but if you get a little higher, I guarantee you can see the rubble and debris of either unfinished work or, well, just a desperate attempt to make something look better than it actually is. I don't know why unless they're adding more offices into the lower areas of the building, for whatever purpose, I don't know. They're just expanding certain branches of the government. Well, if they're not doing anything of that sort, then this is entirely pointless. Let's go up here and see if I can get a better view. That's an interesting statue. Surprised I'm not seeing a lot of red paint on most of them. I'm sure at one point there was, but oh well. There's that statue I saw last time. I want to get a better view of that. Okay. Is going to be able to show anything up here? Authorized personnel only. Yeah, don't worry, I'm not going to try and pick the locks. Well, you get the point. I don't think you need to see much more than that. Interesting enough view, though. Well, okay. I am going to either get something to eat and then head down that way towards Westboro, or, well, I really have most of, well, it all depends. Even if I sleep out here tonight, I don't know, or sleep out on the streets tonight. I'm gonna also, coming back, I'm gonna try and head into Byward Market, which is where I sat at the entrance to it, when I was coming down here in part 5. It's right across from the Rideau Center. I didn't even realize that was, well, I didn't really know what, I didn't know what Byward Market was, really, until someone I know here in Ottawa explained it to me. It's just a marketplace. It's a well-known marketplace with a bunch of different cultures and, well, ethnic cuisines and just novelty shops and things of the sort. That's, well, yeah, just to highlight aspects of Ottawa and Ottawa's culture. So, yeah, I'm going to do all that and try and get my thought process straight right now. What I wanted to say. Oh, well, I guess I'll say this quick. For those people who were laughing at that person, look, I'm all for offensive humor. I love offensive humor, dark humor. Not what you'd call edgy humor, just, I love that shit. It's soothing. And it can actually address horrific problems of this world. Relates to the philosophy of absurdism, which is something I believe, logically. And yada 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 yada, but at the same time, fucking have compassion. I do believe that there is a time for joking. I don't believe there's a place for joking. I go against that. A lot of people say there's a time and a place. Personally, I think there is no place for a joke to make light of something horrific or just something absurd. But, my God, there is a time for it. Seriously. patrolling all around. There's no need. There's literally no need. And as of right now, even though that man may have aggressive behavioral disorder, or maybe some form of Tourette's syndrome, I forget the name of this specific one, where there's scarring on the temporal amygdala region. One of my favorite YouTubers, this trippy hippie, talks about it a lot. She suffers from Tourette's syndrome and epilepsy. Well, I forget exactly what it's called. It's like, it's in the most known type. I don't know if it's the most common type, but it's the most known in terms of like major populace, where it's just excessive tics and swearing, vulgarity. Maybe that person is a form of it, but either way, people look at, well, others look at people like that as if they are, I hate this word in terms of actually using it for people, but like sincerely using it, freaks. They look at them like they're an anomaly in a otherwise well-maintained environment. No, that anomaly is a product of the fucking environment, in my opinion. And things like that, or that, or that, or that, to an overbearing and encroaching extent, they don't help it. The way the modern world, and for pretty well all of history, people have looked at policing in terms of governmental, well, in terms of governmental purpose. Okay, there's this skewed idea that a lot of politicians, especially neoliberal fascist politicians, like to spin that police are there to protect and serve. No, they're not. I've said it before. Police, how it's done, the systems, how they're made. Policing is here to... it's here to enforce laws, whether those laws are beneficial or problematic. They're not trained to critically think in most parts of the world, assess the situation. They are not situated in one place of a large cityscape or in rural areas, just in one county. They're constantly patrolling, onslaughts of them, multiple different countries around the world. There's far too many precincts, police precincts, in cities. There's far too many, in my opinion, just branches of police. There doesn't need to be more than one. I hate the fact, I can get into this to another time, I really hate external affairs policing systems, international affairs. I hate them. Again, not speaking to every individual person, as I know people who have worked in policing, who genuinely are fantastic people, at least in my opinion. But my God, this is beyond ridiculous. Well, I'll hand it to them. That's interesting and impressive. Don't know how it works, but again, not enough to win me over. This boils my fucking blood. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck whatever. Fuck off. Just fuck off. You don't care. I don't know if the city places here or if it was commissioned by the church, but fuck off. Yeah, well, the world outside your fortress here, don't know every single Christian who goes to this church, but in terms of the organization, well, I hope you're actually fucking redistributing that wealth and not just taking protections from the government in terms of funds all for yourself, or just scamming people out of their money in commune. Because look outside. It's hypocrisy. It's bullshit. You gotta be fucking joking. That pisses me. Fuck. Okay, this one I just don't get. Yeah, it's okay. It's somewhat neat. A mini scale, half-finished mini-scale model of the downtown area of Ottawa and a small portion of the southern end of Gatineau? Why? Just... What is this commemorating? The buildings? Yeah, this is telling you where it is located. I guess it's more of supposed to be a 3D... what is this? A copper map? Is that copper? Is that oxidized copper? I don't know. I don't know. So, this is the Archival Library, or the Canadian Archival Library, I guess. It's a... Okay. I don't know if they were flashing their lights at me. I don't think they would be, considering there's a small protest going on right here. That's 2 organized protests that I've seen. I want to count 3 protests as that guy was spouting a lot of, well, technically, I guess, defaming the government and the Canadian societal system, which I agree with. But, well, I guess this place would be interesting. I've never been in it. Archiving history, in my opinion, is important, but unfortunately, this is probably funded from the blood money of the Parliament. Oh, it most definitely is. There's no way. It's a government building. Of course it's not a non-profit. What am I talking about? I'm an idiot. And again, I don't know why this card... I hope that this is just security for the building. If it's an actual another sector of police, well, I mean, security for buildings is technically a sector of police, which is not really needed at all. But I mean, if that's just another branch of police, like for like public law enforcement, then I'm going to internally explode. I'm not going to externally explode. I don't know what this protest is supposed to be about over here. Maybe I should actually go ask. Oh, yeah, I also forgot to mention, it seems like we've got what looks to be people who, and from what they're saying, from what I've heard, might be affiliated with the Proud Boys. I don't know. But, or they might be part of the whole, well, not the Freedom... Okay, I have more gray areas with the Freedom Convoy. I do agree with certain people on, like, their anger with the whole issue. Many, actually, in terms of the border restrictions, but, others definitely just took advantage of it for their... Well, albeit their rights for certain things, but, well, they took advantage of it just to spout right-winged shit. Others, not so much. It was more of a mixed bag, I guess. But yeah, from what they're talking about over there, it seems to be.
Cops are here to keep the peace. There's more Convoy people inside watching the inquiry. I'm just watching the inquiry from out here on my phone, so you can watch it on your phone. Are you from Ottawa?
No, I'm actually from Toronto.
Okay, cool. Are you here for the inquiry, or are you just hanging out?
I'm just here on travels.
Okay, cool. Nice.
I didn't know they held. I assume they held actual political inquiries.
Well, they have a huge gallery, and they have it. They're able to set it up, so they have like this security that you see here is not usually here. Yeah, if there's commissions, then this is a great place to hold it.
Well, out of a library.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
All right.
Me too.
Don't tell me I lost that one as well. Come on.
Oh, you're joking.
Are you actually for real? Are you kidding? There's no way.
I saw you talking to Dina out there, and I guess I'm curious. Obviously, you're kind of trying to find out what she's doing, but if you are interested in going on the inquiry because you're a citizen that's curious, you're allowed to, easy peasy. You just have to go through security, but you have every right, like everyone else, to go and actually see what's going on in that inquiry. Easy peasy. You have to go through. I'm actually with the people who are the Indian party, I guess, in their testifying. But I'm kind of like a PLT for the freedom people, like the liaison. I'm the one that, so I'll see people that I know and say, oh hey, well this is where we go. Go through there, go through security. Don't bring your like pocket scissors for grooming stuff. Like just give them like so that they can get through security, and then go in and just be peaceful, be quiet. And I know you're not wearing anything that leads me to believe that you're with freedom people or convoy people. Or with anybody. So I'm just saying, but as a citizen, I would encourage you to go in and check it out. You're definitely allowed to. There's lots of room in the courtroom. But it's pretty easy breezy. No ID needed, just like any pointy objects or whatever that you'll see on the screen. That's all. So that's the 411. That's it. Yeah.
me just pretend to tie my shoe down here and talking to the phone. Okay, changed their plans a bit. I didn't know they were holding the inquiries for the whole Emergencies Act versus Freedom Convoyers. What happened in, well, technically, beginning of, that was the beginning of this year, correct? Yes, that absolutely was 2022. I'm thinking of the January 6th riots of 2021 in the United States, which they do have a bit of a difference. Okay, I can get to Westboro District in a little while. I might do that. Yeah. And as for my bit to my wheel, well, I'm just baffled by that. I'm baffled.
Are you a member of the public or are you accredited? I'm going to have to go through there, but you're not going to be able to take the sorry. Okay.
Can I leave it somewhere over here for you guys?
There's a lot of moving pieces.
Alright,
There was a commission going on here, hearing for the truckers. So right now there's a hearing, but now there's a 15 minutes break. So if you want to check it out, you can come after 15 minutes. And you can sit down in the area.
okay.
It's open for you.
Do you know how long it'll last?
Oh, it's ongoing. It has been already 2 weeks. It's going to be till December 1st. Oh, for today, I don't know, maybe 9 hours.
Okay. I'll be back in 15 minutes.
Well, today just got a little bit more interesting, I guess, evidently. Hey, I've been following this news on and off for about... Okay, for a quick rundown, for those of you who don't know. So, in 2022, or the beginning of 2022, there was well, the Trudeau administration, for the Canadian government, federal government, put in place restrictions for border crossing between Canada and America. And it was heavily invasive to a lot of, well, export workers for both countries. And it was due to, I believe, what they claimed as well, because the rising in, something was put in place that restricted their movement. And mainly, I believe, was because of the requirement of the vaccine passports for COVID-19. Now, my whole thing with the whole vaccine passport thing, right now, me questioning my morals, and even before that, I guess I became iffy on it, especially talking to someone else I know. Okay, anyway, businesses want to mandate it, fine, but anyway, anyway, long story short, a major protest convoy arose, or was formed, and it was coming from all around, nationwide across Canada, and from other countries as well, mainly America, driving up in protest of the restrictions put in place on the export workers, which, again, some of the people, I'd say it was mixed. Half of the people actually genuinely were concerned about what was the pretty unfair restrictions that Trudeau was putting in place. And I have my gripes with Trudeau about this whole protest, but one thing is, the thing that I absolutely think he shouldn't have done was enact the Emergencies Act. Now, some of the protesters, yes, they were getting a bit rowdy. They were blocking, it was kind of ineffective, as they were blocking car routes on international bridges that, well, bridged mainly in the southern half of Ontario, in Windsor and Detroit, blocking the bridges that connected the American state of Michigan and the Canadian province of Ontario, like, for border crossing. For just blocking pedestrian cars from getting through. And police were called in. They tried to escort them out. I think whatever our form of a national guard, well, I think we actually have just what it would be referred to as the R.C.M.P, I guess, technically, and there's a division that acts as what would be considered our national guards for provinces, and I guess territories if they have them, even though that is protected by the R.C.M.P, those territories. Anyway, long story short, I just said that. The convoy made it here to Ottawa. There was huge rally protests outside of Parliament buildings where I just was, that I'm showing you. And most of it remained peaceful, a bit, like, vocally aggressive. There was some incidents of violence, but not much. And anyway, Trudeau, though, because of the peaceful protests, and most of them were peaceful, from everything I saw. And Trudeau, unfairly, as the tyrant he's now, I guess, become somewhat, I already hated him. I thought he was a terrible leader. He's performative, histrionic, sociopathic, in my opinion, egotistical, denser than a can of tomato soup. No, that's not very dense. He's thicker in the head than epistemologically, like, intellectually, he's thicker than, well, fake maple syrup. in my opinion. And that's not me praising who was originally, and I think he's out now, the conservative leader, Aaron O'Toole. He was a dickhead, moron, sociopath. Like, just subtle right-winged idiot, too. As I actually feel Trudeau is right-winged as well. Despite, he's liberal. Okay, I don't want to generalize there. It's his party being in terms of the liberal philosophy of capitalism, yada yada yada. Anyway, so he enacted the Emergencies Act, which, if you don't know what it is, the gist of it, it's an well, exactly as it's called. It's basically the acting prime minister can enact it, I believe, up to 5 times during their term. I think either that or they have an infinite amount. But he enacted it, and it basically gives the federal government, or at least from what I understand of it, the federal, I know it gives them complete power, or complete, well, dictation over, well, over certain either areas they can choose, or over an entire, well, province or municipality for, like, specific supposed to be dire straight scenarios, or like a very intensive scenario where the government has to step in. I have my issues with that act, even being like a policy that can be enforced in government, but so anyway, so those people over there, some of them, I guess, are members of the Proud Boys. I'm not very savory on that. But others are just, like, part of, most of them, it seems to be, they're just part of the Freedom Convoy, or were members of the Freedom Convoy. And right now, as that lady I talked to over there, who's protesting the camera, with the camera operator on the front stoop here of the Archival Library building, told me, as I'm sure the camera picked up, that they're holding, like, the court hearings for the convoy protesters, the organizers of the convoy, versus the federal administrators who helped in signing. Well, I don't know if Trudeau is actually going to be in here. Okay, maybe that's why. Okay, I already talked about the Parliamentary Protective Service Police. Don't like them. The concept of them being there. And where they're patrolling is out of their bounds, in my opinion. But I have seen a lot of people that looks ideally what you'd expect Secret Service to look like. Maybe good old Justin is in there right now, and other members of other leaders of political parties in Canada. But they're holding the court hearings for it in there right now, and it's free for the public to see. Now, the security was asking me if I was a member of the public, press, members of the convoy, like, was involved with it, had affiliations with it, or have been granted, like, press access, or have I, just along those lines. And, hey, I guess you could consider this a form of journalism, but I'm not that was a joke. I'm not a journalist, vlogger, but anyway, yeah, I have some interest to see how this turns out. If you want my whole stance on this, I don't like the violence, the short bits of violence that happened at the protests. I don't like the more right-winged angle that a lot of the protesters came from, or even in what some of the actual aspects of the protest turned into, of advocating for staunch rightism in some regards, or making unfounded claims about the government, even though they were correct in calling, I think they're correct in calling them a terrorist organization, the Canadian government, but But, and I also hate the fact that Trudeau enacted the Emergencies Act. That was, in my opinion, completely uncalled for, and I have ethical problems with that, somewhat. But, so if you want my stance, I feel that in terms of what the hearing is for, him enacting the emergencies policy, I hope that the Convoy wins, because even though I don't support a lot of their more ideological views, as they're leaning towards like center-right or even far-right, I do think it was unfair. And with my libertarian philosophies, especially in terms of sociology, I do believe in freedom of speech, no matter what it may be, in terms of like just purely from your words, and freedom of expression with certain limitations, but your right to talk about something and organize a protest, no matter what your ideology may be. It may be sad what some people believe, but I still feel they have the right to have their voice heard, or at the very least shout at the top of their lungs how they're feeling. And as long as they're being peaceful with it, as most of the protesters did remain peaceful, despite what they may have been advocating for. Yeah, so this should be, I guess I hope the Convoy wins. So, and don't take that as me supporting any form of right-winged ideals they may have. Just in terms of fairness from my own political philosophies, I think for what they're discussing right now, the Emergencies Act, I hope they do. But nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see. Let's hope I can actually film in there inside my pocket. So the security guard told me that they were taking a 15-minute break, so it's ever since I got out here, it's been about 15 minutes since I walked back out here. I'm recording this section of the video for 12 minutes. Yeah. It's now, what time is it? It's 4:40 p.m. Well, if I get to Westboro District tonight or another day, we'll see. But one way or another, I'm actually definitely going to go towards Bayward Market. Wanted to check it out and also apply for jobs, and also to see if the person I met, the person I talked about at the end of, was it the end? Yes, it was the end of part 6 of Exploring Ottawa, that I met a man English named Martin, but he had a Kenyan Swahili name that I fucking can't remember, goddamn. And I talked with him for a while, and he's impoverished. He talked about how he suffers from schizophrenia, and paranoid schizophrenia more specifically. In terms of that guy back there, what I left out, I guess in my own analysis, I guess I was being a bit... that person could have also been suffering from severe bipolar disorder in certain regards, because they were having what seemed to be hefty mood changes, from bulging furious to more subdued, calmed, more composed, to incredibly devastated and emotionally distraught, like sad, heavy, just wailing and being very just distraught. Or it could have been schizoaffective disorder, where that's schizophrenic symptoms coupled with mood disorder. That would be a mental disorder. Anyway, yeah, let's go back in and see what comes of this. I have no clue.
They'll open it and look inside, but you know, unless somebody's got like push the options.
Stuff in the corner over there? Over there? Yeah. Do you have your bag and everything like that?
Oh, I had a card. I had a suit bag and a blanket in.
It's there.
Yeah, it is. Over there.
Yeah, on the property.
Is that a problem?
Yeah, you can't have that over here.
Oh,
So you can't leave any belongings or anything like that, so we're not going to allow you entry at this time because your items are still over there on the property.
okay.
So I'm just going to ask that you remove it off-site and just take your equipment off-site, please.
Okay, is there anywhere around here that...
It can't be anywhere on this vicinity at all, on this property.
Okay,
So
but is there anywhere on this side of it that's not considered...
everything you see here is all considered the commission property. We're securing the zone, so having your bag over there while you're over here, it's not in accordance with our standards. So I'm just going to ask that you just step away from the line and take your stuff and just leave off the property. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll be there. Before. Well, I mean, something I guess they did. Not video thing. Okay, well, again, I can't do nothing for this. I am hoping.
Okay, let's hope that nobody sees that. It's right across from the library. Oh god. I mean, I don't have a lock for it, and if I leave it, if it's gone, it's gone. All it is, well, I need this, whatever.
jacket.
Okay.
Coin and keys. You file the jacket like this.
Okay, just 1 second. Wait.
Over the place. There was at the intersection of Metcalfe and Wellington by the time I got out for the very first time to go actually see it for myself. And so that's where I went, and it was incredible. The crowd was humongous, and people. If I recall correctly, the first time I got out was to actually go make a speech on the stage truck. And it was a very overwhelming emotional experience because I felt that there was a sense of hope that Canada wouldn't go to a very dark place.
And what was your speech about, just very generally?
It was, well, I know that I included some of those remarks in my speech, that prior to that convoy, I was ready to leave the country. My wife and I had discussed that at length, moving somewhere where we would be treated as an equal citizen, and especially for the future of our children, and that seeing the convoy and the rallying of support behind it all across Canada restored my faith in Canadians, that they weren't just going to let Canada degenerate further.
Did you talk about security issues or behavioral issues?
I did. I gave a thank you to the first responders, and I even kind of tipped my hat slightly to some of my old colleagues that were up on the roof of the Parliament buildings doing Overwatch. You know, saying that I know a lot of these people, they're good people, and they're here to protect us too. Because there was a great deal of mistrust of the police, and I reminded everyone, or advocated for everyone to remain lawful, peaceful, and lawful at all times, so that the government and the media could not label us with similar derogatory terms that we already have.
And we could go put back up please HRF 401553. And if you can just scroll through that to the date February 1. So if you can stop it just there. I take it you took daily notes of everything that you were doing?
Yeah, I tried to document as much as I could.
And that's all set out in your statement?
Yes.
So, for example, you were dealing with issues like you identified on February 1st, you received a call about an aggressive, unidentified male at Wellington and Metcalfe, and you reported that to the police. Okay. In the first paragraph there.
Yeah, I don't recall if I called the police. I think people that were present at the stage truck at the time called the police.
And if you just keep scrolling, please, you'll see there's a number of events or issues that you dealt with on February 1st, and then into February 2nd. And then if we come to February 3rd, you put up these HRF 401287. This is a letter from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms to the mayor, it refers on page 2 to a press conference that you gave on February 3.
correct.
And so in the second paragraph there, you indicate that you'd like to put people's minds at ease. The public is watching people that have concerns over what they're seeing in regards to the heavy police presence. What was your objective there?
Just to bring down the overall level of the protesters. I mean, in my mind, Ottawa residents have seen that type of police presence probably on a regular basis at large-scale events. But a lot of these people that travel to Ottawa have likely never been here before and likely never participated in an event of this magnitude. So I just wanted everyone to understand that when you have a massive crowd such as this come to the National Capital Region for a large event, it's normal to have multiple police agencies involved. It's normal to have specialized units moving around in more tactical looking clothing, and it's normal to have snipers on rooftops, because that was something that a lot of people were really panicked about. They were nervous about the presence of snipers being on the roof. And that being my old job, I was able to speak to people and keep them calm. Like, it's totally normal, don't panic. That's what happens here all the time.
And if you could put up these HRF 401289. And it's page 11 of the document, I believe. Sorry. Can you just scroll back a bit? No, more. Scroll up then, sorry. Not the other way. Can I keep going, please? More. This, keep going, please. This is an affidavit that you swore in connection with the proceedings, the class action commenced by XCV.
Yes, that's correct.
And you talk about, at paragraph 7 and 8, if you can scroll there, about a complaint from an Ottawa resident about honking through the night.
Yes, that's correct.
You say you told him that quiet hours from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. has been put in place. What was your understanding of that? Who put that into place?
My understanding is that the truck captains had already put that into place, maybe even the day before, if not that day, the day before. That's what was communicated to myself, and this was the one and only complaint I ever received about it.
And what was your understanding moving through the period of time that the convoy was in Ottawa? Did that change?
Well, there was the injunction came into place as well, which definitely impacted the horn honking, and I would say, in my opinion, it reduced it even further.
Can we go to paragraph 9 of your affidavit? Say there, my primary concern is individuals or groups with potential to deliberately instigate conflict with the Freedom Convoy movement and to discredit the Freedom Convoy. Can you say why that was your concern?
Well, that would go back partially to my concern about a lone wolf or small cell that could potentially try and leverage the large crowd for their own agenda. But I also had concerns because I've done overwatch at a number of protests and counter protests in Ottawa, and I've seen with my own eyes how aggressive groups related to the Antifa movement can be when they are much larger in numbers than the group that they're counter-protesting against, and how aggressive they can be overrunning the police line as well.
So when you were referring to instigators, who were you referring to?
Well, people who would deliberately try to initiate a violent interaction with a Freedom Convoy protester, or maybe even someone who would try to infiltrate the crowd with a racist type flag to try and bring discredit to the Freedom Convoy protest.
And do you recall, I believe the date was February, having the conversation with Constable Dickey about her concern and displeasure with the psychological operation being waged on convoy participants?
Yes, I do.
And what was that about?
So in the initial, I would say close to initial 2 weeks, I thought that Chief Slowly was pretty fair in his remarks regarding the convoy, you know, understanding his position as the Chief of Police of the City of Ottawa. And then after I think it was a council meeting, or a Police Services Board meeting, there was a lot of rhetoric regarding the Freedom Convoy protesters' allegations of being extremists, insurrectionists. I believe even the term domestic terrorism may have been thrown around. And I noticed at that time, it also coincided with a lot of that same rhetoric from the legacy media. And you know, and we'd already heard and seen the Prime Minister using similar language. And so I felt that was definitely heightening the anxiety of the overall crowd. The fear that they were going to be labeled such and dealt with as such by law enforcement, because they were under so much pressure from the different levels of government. And there was also, I believe that was right around the same time that there was also, they were being denied access to service some of the portable toilets. So I mean, you're denying people their basic sanitation needs. And there was also information beginning to circulate about the involvement of CAS, or Children's Aid Society, I believe is what that stands for. And that to me was a clear red flag to me, that if you are deliberately trying to provoke people to take action, if you make them believe that you're going to take their kids away, that's going to elicit a very strong emotional response. And I believe that was deliberately done in order to bully the Freedom Convoy protesters.
And we can put up these document HRF 50568. Is this the type of daily security briefing that you would prepare on a day-to-day basis?
I believe there was a mistake. I did not prepare these daily security briefings like a document.
Yes.
That was another individual. But I mean, these are some of my some of the actions that I took place in and the conversations that I took place in.
And who is Constable Dickey?
He is an OPP liaison officer.
And in this document, you refer to under February 4 in the first paragraph to an incident at Confederation Park, and then you refer to an incident involving the new Queen of Canada. And paragraph down, you were asked about Patsy's involvement in the convoy, and you indicated you had limited knowledge and almost zero contact with him. And if you can scroll down, please. Next page. This is the next page. Did you also at one time speak to Constable Worsbicky about a memorandum of understanding that was circulated?
I don't recall speaking to Constable Worsbicky about that, no.
Did you know about the memorandum of understanding?
Yes, I had heard about it, and I think I may have seen it circulating online ahead of the convoy. The first time I ever actually read it was just last week.
And you mentioned the intersection at Rideau and Sussex. Did you have occasion to go to Rideau and Sussex?
Yes, I walked through that intersection multiple times daily, but at least probably twice a day, when I would go out for a foot patrol and when I would come back.
And what were your observations?
Well, they were primarily made up of Quebecois truckers, but then there was also, like other witnesses have testified, there was also like a Polish or Eastern European contingent. And I actually encountered a Cuban Canadian who spoke to me at length about how he felt strongly about being there to support the convoy because he had lived through communism and that Canadians could not give up their freedoms.
And were you there at any time when there was attempts to move vehicles from Rideau and Sussex?
No, I was not.
And what was your impression of the way people were behaving at the intersection?
Well, on weekends they would have a stage and music, and they would have like a nightly dance party. Definitely on the Friday and the Saturday night, typically, is what I recall.
And what about during the week? Do you recall?
There was a lot of different food tents and barbecues. People were cooking and preparing food in clumps of people.
Now, we heard evidence from Keith Wilson. You know Mr. Wilson?
Yes, I do.
That there were leaks in either the OPS, OPP, or both because convoy organizers were aware of police operations before they happened. Do you know about that?
I never had any active duty officers leaking me any sensitive information. I did have a number of police officers, former police officers, former military, that were helping me with some of those different security tasks. And there was, I'm not exactly certain of the number, but there was officers that were on leave for various reasons, whether it be the mandates or their own personal reasons. I didn't ask, it wasn't my business, that were also helping with some of the security tasks that I was coordinating.
Okay. And if I can move to a different subject, did you continue to have contact with the POTs, the police forces over the entire period?
In general, yes. There might have been There might have been the odd day where there was no communication. I know communication with the Ottawa Police Service liaison teams, and I recall it reducing near the end, like especially after the Emergencies Act had been invoked. But from my recollection, the OPP was fairly regularly engaged.
And did you, concerning the OPS, did you have a view on how effective they were being?
Well, I think they were overwhelmed by the size of the convoy. I think that I actually had the young officer that I spoke to that early in the convoy down at the booth in Sir John A. Macdonald. He actually said to me, "I can't believe the size of this." Something to this effect. "I can't believe the size of this. We're totally unprepared for something this size." And I kind of laughed and I said, "Well, you guys have to stop listening to the CBC for intelligence." And that was kind of the end of that interaction. But because if you have been paying attention to open source, like any kind of social media, it was obvious that this was a huge event that was about to land in Ottawa. But coming back to how effective they were, I have no complaints about dealing with them, but I don't think it was ever really, I never really felt as though there was any kind of a negotiation taking place. It was just my means to communicate with the police, because we would try and get simple returns from the police liaisons, like something as simple as, like, could we possibly get access to this location so we could drop some portable toilets? And we were getting shut down almost all the time. The only time I ever remember having any success with that was after I had expressed my displeasure about the psychological operation that was being conducted when I had that discussion with OPP Where's Becky.
And at one point, did you come to learn that Chief Slowey had asked for 1,800 police officers?
Yes, I did.
And what was your reaction to that?
Well, I anticipated that at the very least he was asking for a large number, because this could be a sustained event and members would obviously need to be cycled out for sustainment. And likely that they were preparing for a mass mobilization.
And did you do anything as a result of hearing that information?
I mean, we had discussions about it. It didn't change what my role was. My task was to just continue trying to keep things as safe as possible.
And were you aware of negotiations that were taking place between the leaders in the convoy and the mayor?
I was made aware of that after the fact.
Okay. And in terms of, did you have any communication with anyone who was involved in the Ambassador Bridge protest?
No, I did not. I believe we've already seen an email that was forwarded to me by Miss Lich during her testimony, and that was the only time I'd ever seen anything from Windsor, and that I didn't even open that until well after the Ottawa convoy had been dismantled.
And what about Coots?
No, sir.
Emerson, Surrey?
None.
At what point do you recall learning that the Emergencies Act was to be invoked?
I believe the day that it was officially announced by the federal government.
Did you hear anything about it prior to that date?
I think there was discussions, people wondering if it would be, and my thought process was that, well, I would not be surprised if it was, because the city had declared a state of emergency, the province had declared one. To me, it would not surprise me in the least if the next logical step was the federal government.
And do you recall, subsequent to the invocation on February 16, holding a press conference?
Yes, I do.
And that was with Mr. Gerses and Mr. Cornell?
That's correct.
Who is Mr. Cornell?
He's one of the members of the steering committee for the group Veterans for Freedom. He's a combat veteran.
And if I can just read you what I understand you said at that press conference, the emergency order clearly states that the protest is allowed to continue if the protest is peaceful. The government is trying to order the police to use force against peaceful protesters. We call on our fellow Canadians to come to Ottawa to exercise their legal right to assembly and protest. The more Canadians that come to Ottawa, the harder it will be for the police to carry out the government's illegal order. That's something you said?
That's correct.
And did you receive advice as to your interpretation of the emergency order?
Yes. We received a briefing from the legal team that, based on, I believe it's Justice McLean's ruling, that as long as people did not come to Ottawa to engage in violence, disrupt trade, or block critical infrastructure, we still fell within the confines of a lawful protest.
And did somebody request that you give this press conference, or did you do it on your own initiative?
Well, I was working with the media relations people from early on. I think, like you mentioned, that my first press conference that I attended was on February 3rd, and so I did a number of press conference events during my time with the Convoy.
And at this point, isn't it fair to say that you believe that enforcement action could come at any time?
Perhaps I was naively hoping that my brothers and sisters in law enforcement would see the truth on the ground as opposed to what the government and the media was saying, and that they would take a historic opportunity to stand up for our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
And did you think about, was it a concern to you that you were encouraging people to come into Ottawa where that sort of law enforcement activity might well take place?
No, because at that time, like I said, I still had faith that frontline members would do the right thing.
Now, my understanding is that on February 18, your wife advised you that you were going to be arrested?
Yes, that's correct. She advised me that she had received a text message from one of our neighbors that the news was reporting that the police were looking for me to arrest me.
And if we turn to the document PB/NSD CAN 408924. The second page of the document. So this is an R.C.M.P. document, and if you look at the bottom of the page, you'll see information collected. Freedom Convoy organizers held a press conference at 13:30 hours. Participants included, and that's blanked out, spoke to the same thing. And you see what it says there about Canadians still being allowed to come to Ottawa with their children to engage in peaceful, lawful protest. Is that what you said at your press conference?
Yeah, I believe that's accurate.
And you'll see the last paragraph there, all three individuals have contravened to Section 5 of the Emergency Measures Regulations by inviting a person to participate in an assembly that may reasonably be expected to lead to a breach of the peace. If I can come back, were you arrested on February 18th?
Yes, I was.
And can you briefly tell the commissioner about that?
Well, after the press conference, my wife showed me the text message from our neighbor. I left the Lord Elgin Hotel. I walked down to Rideau in Sussex, where I knew that the police action had already begun. Initially, I encountered the Sûreté de Québec. No one would respond to me, so then I realized that there was R.C.M.P, the line of R.C.M.P officers over closer to the Senate, the old train station. And so I walked over to them. I approached the line. I presented myself, and I said, something to the effect of, I hear that you're looking for me to arrest me. Is that true? And then I was arrested for mischief.
And were you ultimately charged?
No, I was not.
Were your bank accounts frozen?
Yes, they were.
Tell the commissioner about that, please.
To my recollection, we realized that our bank accounts were frozen. So, 2 different banks and a primary credit card. I realized how I recall it going was that accessing online banking with our primary bank, and it was just like a blank dash where the account balance would normally be. And then my wife confirmed with the other bank, attempted to use the credit card, and it was declined. And my wife spoke to a banking professional, a friend of ours, if with our accounts frozen, with our mortgage payments and automatic withdrawals still be paid, and we were advised that it would not be. And so I would say roughly a period of 5 to 6 days, we were completely dependent on what cash we had.
And after that, how long were your accounts frozen?
I believe it was, my accounts were unfrozen on the Tuesday, the 22nd or the 23rd of February, when after the Emergencies Act had been revoked.
So they were frozen for how many days?
I believe I realized they were frozen on the 17th. And then, I think that was Thursday. I didn't receive any kind of notification about it until, I think one bank called me and left a voicemail message on the Saturday. And then, it was unfrozen after the Emergencies Act had been revoked.
And were you able to meet your day-to-day expenses during that period?
Well, fortunately, we didn't have a whole pile of expenses that we had to incur during those days, but we had some help from some family.
Thank you, sir. Those are my questions.
I may add one thing about the accounts being frozen. I was never notified by the police that my accounts were frozen, contrary to what was said to Parliament by the R.C.M.P when they testified in committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the Ottawa Police Service, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bulford. My name is Daniel Bulford. I'm a lawyer for the Ottawa Police Police Service. Good afternoon. You talked about your interactions with the PLT, and I gather from reviewing your statement you've had many interactions with the PLT. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they were very helpful?
I think they desired to be, yes.
And you have the sense that they wish they had more ability to negotiate?
Yes, I would say that's accurate. I do recall, you know, when there was attempts to negotiate, occasionally receiving the reply like that wasn't their decision to make.
In your statement you prepared, you have a statement that says Canada Freedom Rights Movement, a Daniel Bulford statement. That's a statement that was prepared for you by the Justice Centre's lawyers?
No, sir, I prepared that myself.
And you put that logo on top, or that name on top, Canada Freedom Rights Movement?
Yes, I did.
And did you suggest that everyone else do that as well?
No, I did not.
Okay. In that report, you indicate a number of potentially criminal actions involving non-convoy members that you reported to the OPS. And so I see things in that report about bikers, about the new Queen of Canada, false claims that bricks had been ordered in your name, potential instigation, concerns about Canada unity, vandalism of trucks, social media posts made by Mr. Lacasse, a shortage, a sabotage of transport trucks, bikers, and bomb threats, right? Those are all things that you referenced.
That's correct.
And you're a strong supporter, I take it, of law and order.
My dad was a police officer for 38 years. Both of my older brothers were police officers. Obviously I was, and there's only one of us remaining, but my hometown in Alberta referred to us as the Byzantine Blue Bloods.
And I know from the Ottawa Police Service institutional report that I won't turn up in order to save time, that during the period of the convoy, there were a number of criminal charges laid. In fact, we know, and it's on page 14, that there were 533 of them according to Schedule C. But what I don't see a single notation of in your statement is where you brought any of those criminal offenses to the attention of the Ottawa police.
Can you refresh me on the dates that you're referring to?
The dates? Yes, your statement, I'm not sure when your statement was prepared, but the evidence that we have in the record is that during the period of the Freedom Convoy, so from January 28th to a date in March, there were a total of 533 criminal charges.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't remember if that's laid or people arrested. And so I didn't see anywhere in your statement where you brought information about that criminal activity to the attention of the Ottawa police.
I have the objection on one. Yes. My friend is misstating the evidence to the witness, and I object to it. On that basis, the evidence is that the vast majority of charges were laid after the fact, and they were actually, at least based on undocumented evidence, criminal charges that existed at the time before the invocation were only about 19. That charge is laid. So, with respect to my friend stating in the OPS document, and I can advise the Commission that after I looked at what they had put together, I asked for disclosure from them with respect to when these charges were laid, and they've decided not to provide that. They're using a jumbled up statistic. So in my submission, sir, my friend's going to ask the witness about why he didn't include OPS information in his statement that isn't clear. I think he needs to actually put the actual evidence that is before this tribunal before him, and not jumble it up into a fact that these are 500 some odd charges that may or may not have been laid during the time period that he was here, sir.
Okay, well, maybe you can just ask.
I think the question was fair, and my friends now used a couple minutes of my time. But there were a lot of charges during the period of the Freedom Convoy. We know that. And I don't see anywhere in your statement where you reference informing the Ottawa police of the situations leading to those criminal charges.
Well, I often reported to the Ottawa police, the various police agencies, anything that came to my attention that I believed to be criminal or a public safety concern, and I believe that the majority of those arrests and charges happened during the dismantle operation of the protest, a significant chunk of which I was in custody.
You were in custody as of what date, sir?
February 18th.
Well, the record will speak for itself. And so, in your statement, in paragraph 8 of your statement, you say you did everything to cooperate with the police and to maintain public peace and police safety. Is that correct, or is that incorrect?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I also note that in the institutional report of the Ottawa Police, that the Communication Centre received many emergency calls from businesses to have protesters removed because they weren't wearing a mask, to deal with complaints about being harassed while walking on the street with masks, to complaints of being sexually harassed and threatened. I see as well that questions were asked about OPS's enforcement plans. I see as well that there were noise complaints that were received and requests for charges against the protesters. And I don't see anywhere, sir, in your statement where you reference any of those things.
Well, sir, that's not my job to handle the call volume that the Ottawa Police receives. And there's a lot of allegations that I've heard during testimony at this inquiry that I have no knowledge or have not seen any real evidence of. I'm not suggesting that it's not possible, but people were not calling me to report criminal offenses to the police.
You've heard the evidence of councillors McKenney and Fleury?
Yes.
And you heard about what their constituents had to put up with, correct? You heard that evidence? I'm just asking that question.
Yes, I heard their evidence.
And so either, did you believe what Councillor McKenney and Fleury said? Or did you think the issues they were raising were trivial?
I wouldn't characterize what they were saying as trivial, but again, I've come to the point where I'm not going to believe anything until I see actual evidence of it.
You told me about you clearly respect law and order. I take it you have a lot of respect for the Canadian court system. Correct?
I sincerely hope it's still functioning the way it is intended, yes.
It's important that decisions of the court be respected.
Yes.
And one of the decisions was that the convoy had negatively impacted residents, and the convoy protesters were breaching bylaws. You were aware of that?
Could you specify the bylaws?
Were you aware of that, sir?
Again, sir, it's not my profession to enforce bylaws in the city of Ottawa.
And as a police officer, you understand that disclosing confidential information is an offense?
What type of confidential information are you referring to?
Confidential information. It's an offense under the Police Services Act, and it's also an offense under the Code of Conduct for the R.C.M.P, correct?
That's correct. You know, like, as it relates to information I learned during my time as a police officer?
No, I'm just asking you the question generally, that the disclosure of confidential information is an offense, correct? While if a serving police officer discloses information, that is an offense, correct?
Like if I was to disclose something confidential as an active serving police officer, that would be an offense under the R.C.M.P. Code of Conduct?
Right.
I would agree with that, yes.
Right. And same thing would apply to a municipal police officer who discloses information they had as a police officer.
I'm not entirely certain. I would assume you're probably accurate, but I didn't fall under the Police Services Act.
Okay, sure. It would be breach of confidence if that's of assistance, but it can also potentially be a criminal offense as well, correct? Breach of trust.
Yeah, probably.
And being a person who supports law and order, you would not condone that kind of thing, would you? You wouldn't want police officers to be breaching their oaths and providing confidential information to members of the convoy, would you?
No.
And so Mr. Wilson, in his witness statement, talks about people working at the Swiss Hotel. That was where you were?
That's correct.
And so he said there were former law enforcement officers, they had radios, maps. Many of these ex-service personnel were connected and brought in intel. Wilson is unaware of the sources, but the Freedom Convoy was receiving leaked information from law enforcement. I just want to be clear, you never became aware of any leaked information from Ottawa Police Service officers, did you?
I will be 100% clear. At no time did I receive sensitive information from an active duty Ottawa police officer.
And you never received confidential information from an Ottawa police officer, did you?
No.
Okay. And Mr. Wilson never told you who these people were?
No.
And you were very involved in the security, the response and the incident command that was going on at that hotel, correct?
That's correct.
So one would expect that you would know if there was leaked confidential information, correct?
Yes, I expect I would.
And you're not suggesting, obviously, that if such a thing had occurred, that the Ottawa Police Service would condone that kind of thing, correct?
I think it's fair to say that the Ottawa Police would not condone that.
Right. And one of the things you referenced in your statement at paragraph 80 is you accuse the police leadership, and I'm just going to quote you, of, quote, knowingly attempting to instigate a strong emotional reaction from convoy participants by using inflamed rhetoric and threatening the involvement of child protective services.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, I wonder if I could ask you please to call up HRF 401553. And if we go to page 22, please. At paragraph 103. Thank you. And I'll just read that sentence, the first sentence, sir. I also advise, and this is from your statement, correct?
That's correct.
I also advised him of my belief that our own government was committing crimes against humanity, allowing thousands of Canadians to die because they've been denied life-saving treatment, and others have been disabled or have died from the vaccine, something a homicide detective may want to consider. And would you agree with me that that would be an example of inflammatory rhetoric attempting to instigate a strong emotional response?
I don't think it's an example of inflammatory rhetoric. I think it's absolutely factually true.
Okay.
And I was trying to elicit a response from Detective Benson. Because he, as a homicide detective, should be investigating something of that nature.
And I won't take you to the paragraph to save time. but in paragraph 121 of your statement, you also talk about the extreme dehumanization of unvaccinated people. And I guess you don't see that as inflammatory rhetoric either, correct?
No, sir.
And in your witness statement, you talk about the police breaching windows and extracting protesters during the tactical operation, the POU operation. You recall that?
I do.
And you know, of course, from your experience in law enforcement, that it's easy to be an armchair quarterback and say what's wrong with the police carrying out a tactical operation after the fact, correct? It's very difficult to be on the ground and in the theater of operations, isn't it?
I would agree with that, and I think to add context to the answer is that I believe in my statement I outlined why I believe that occurred.
And you would agree with me that that in the theater of operations, police may be dealing with situations that may be volatile and more dangerous than appear to onlookers, correct?
That's correct.
And you're aware from the police operations that were carried out by the Ottawa Police Service, the OPP, the R.C.M.P, and a number of other public order units, you're aware from your experience that there would generally be an arrest and detention plan prepared for those type of circumstances, correct?
Yes.
And so OPP 04 OPP 401486, if we could just briefly call that up.
You're going to have to be wrapping up soon.
If I may just have 1 more minute.
No problem.
Thank you very much. That is, if you just, you can have to scroll down, that is the arrest and detention plan with respect to the operation that was carried out. And you would presume to say that it wasn't an appropriate arrest plan, would you?
I don't feel I'm qualified to speak to that for a major public order operation such as what occurred. My typical experience with an arrest plan was in a much smaller context, and it was very simple.
And finally, just to finish off, you testified in answer to my friend that you expected although there was an announcement of a large number of police officers and you realized that they were preparing for a tactical or a public order unit response, you testified that you thought that the police officers would do the right thing, correct?
I hope so.
And you thought that they would disregard the situation and simply allow the status quo to continue, correct?
Yes, I had hoped that they would see through the false narrative and stand up for us and do what was right and protect us.
Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Yeah. Next is the Ottawa Residents Coalition.
Good evening, Mr. Bulford, I guess we can say. My name is Paul Champ, for the record, the Ottawa Coalition Residents and Businesses. Mr. Bulford, I just want to ask you about the first thing you were talking about. You were concerned about being disciplined for speaking out about vaccine rules and restrictions.
The federal vaccine mandate.
And you were concerned about being disciplined for speaking out about that?
Yes, I was.
I'm very sorry to hear that. I think that would be totally inappropriate.
Well, that's my lived experience with the R.C.M.P, sir.
Yeah, I've represented R.C.M.P officers for over 20 years, including people for speaking publicly, and things have been different. I would be happy to represent you on that. Now, I want to ask you some questions about your drive around with Sergeant Frost on the eve of the protests. So the two of you drove around looking at appropriate spots for the trucks to park, is that right?
That's correct.
And during that drive, did the two of you discuss in any way about how long the protest might last?
I don't recall. It may have come up, and at that time, I didn't have an accurate timeline.
For sure, because you told us that you expected the protest would last until the federal government dropped vaccine mandates and rules. Is that right?
That was my impression, yes.
And is that what you conveyed to Sergeant Frost?
Potentially.
Now, I just want to ask you, just an aside, about the crowd size. You indicated that it was the largest crowd you'd ever observed in Ottawa.
I would say that's accurate, yes.
I believe some of the records we have from police records that the size of the crowds are in the 10,000 to 15,000 range. Does that sound about right?
No, sir.
What did you think the size was?
Based on my experience doing Overwatch on Canada Day, and seeing the large crowds, especially like, let's say Canada Day 150, where it was probably the biggest I had seen, I would have estimated the crowds in downtown Ottawa, on Parliament Hill, Wellington, that general vicinity, I would have estimated close to 100,000.
So, do you think that the police were recording false information deliberately, or they just assessed it differently than you?
I can't say. I doubt very much that they would record it false deliberately.
Could it be that you maybe just, it was hard for you to assess because all the trucks took up so much space, it was tough to assess the size?
I thought about that. The trucks do take up a lot of space, but the crowd, even between the trucks, was jam-packed from the Supreme Court almost all the way to the Chateau Laurier. And I don't recall seeing that before. I recall seeing large crowds moving around Parliament Hill, along Wellington, into the Byward Market. But those numbers encompass a much larger geographic area than what I'm referring to.
Right. Yeah. When you do Overwatch, you're up on top of the buildings like Langevin Block and stuff like that, so you'd have a better eye view of
That's correct.
the crowd. And you weren't able to be up on those buildings during this time.
No.
Now, I'll ask you about the dance parties you told us about. You thought those parties were Fridays and Saturday nights?
I believe so.
But you and I don't think are so far off in age. You weren't going out to the dance parties every night, I guess, Mr. Bulford?
I didn't have time, sir.
Yeah, I understand. And so if there's dance parties on Wednesdays and Thursday nights, you just wouldn't necessarily know.
I seem to recall them being restricted to weekends, but I could be mistaken.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about your interactions with law enforcement. You've already heard a lot of your evidence on that. About your interactions with KLTs, but you also had interactions with officers who were off duty, is that right?
No. Like, you mean active officers?
Yes, exactly. And just because I'm not going to be asking for names, I'm just trying to understand, because we heard the testimony from Mr. Wilson the other day.
Yes, I understand.
And I just want to understand it. So is Mr. Wilson getting that information from others?
I can't say for certain, but all of the officers that were supporting me in a security context were either off work for their own personal reasons,
right, or
they had left their service.
Right.
They had made a similar decision to me and had decided to leave policing.
How many people are we talking about here, roughly?
A dozen?
A dozen? And so each one of those officers would have had their own network of contacts in law enforcement, is that right?
Possible.
And could have been getting information from current law enforcement?
I don't know, sir. But you have to remember, it wasn't just, like, it was people from all across Canada, from multiple agents, like they had worked for multiple agencies. It wasn't just one service.
I want to ask you about a different topic, Mr. Bulford. Now, the convoy organizers, Ms. Lich, Ms. Barber, others, yourself, you were doing everything possible to convey to protesters to refrain from any kind of violence, correct?
Yes, I would say so.
But because you were security, you were dealing with threats at times, is that right?
Yeah, but not threats from within the convoy protest. Most of anything that I was receiving that was information of a public safety concern was typically someone who was committing a criminal act or potentially a criminal act against the protest.
Right.
There was one or two instances where there was some vehicles that people had reported that they were kind of presenting the idea of blocking intersections,
right.
And those instances were reported to me, convoy protesters, which then I passed on to the police because we were trying to act within the confines of we do not want to block all of the intersections.
Mr. Bulford, my understanding, you were concerned and were doing what you could to protect the convoy organizer leaders, is that right? Be coordinating with some of the other officers to ensure that Mr. Barber and Ms. Leach and so forth were safe?
Ms. Leach did end up getting a former military member to provide some security for her because she had received a number of death threats. But other than that, people were already receiving close protection details and all of that were the doctors. Especially 3 of the doctors in particular had received a number of harassing, or they've been subject to harassment and a number of threats themselves.
Right. Now, Ms. Leach, she very successfully raised a large amount of money from GoFundMe, but we heard her testimony. She was encountering all kinds of difficulty in accessing money. You knew about that.
Yes.
And there was many people who were very angry at her for not being able to produce that money. There was different theories and so forth that she was deliberately not giving the money to them and so forth. There was that going around, right?
There was fractures within the I'd say the freedom movement, maybe not just specific to Ottawa, but even people. I found that the people who were the biggest critics of people like Ms. Leach were people who were not here presently in Ottawa.
Sure. But what I'm getting at is that, although Ms. Leach was trying to convey what she was, trying to do to get the access to GoFundMe money to help the truckers, which, we've seen all the documents, that's what she was doing. But some people at that protest who wanting access to that money perhaps had driven a long way, they were getting very frustrated, and she was she getting threats from some of those people?
Not that I recall.
No, none.
No.
So what was the security detail for?
Well, my impression was that she was receiving threats from people that were opposed to the convoy being in Ottawa.
And everyone else who wanted access to that money, who had driven across the country, spent thousands of dollars, they were just content to sit and they weren't angry about not getting access to the money.
I don't have any information or evidence to support that,
sir. Sir, Mr. Bulford, you're a professional, right? You're a professional security detail protecting very important people, correct?
In my past career, yes.
Right, but let's just be honest with each other. Someone in her situation, if you had assessed that as a professional, you would have thought she might be at risk to her physical safety. The people wanting access to that money who weren't getting it were frustrated. That was a reasonable threat assessment, was it not?
It could be potential, yes, but I didn't have any intelligence or evidence to support that message. Other than the fact that she was the face of the convoy. They had raised a substantial amount of money. But my experience, when you see Ms. Leach in public, people loved her.
Now, you're aware also, Mr. Bulford, that GoFundMe, they were concerned because some of their staff were getting threats for not releasing the money. Were you aware of that?
No, sir, I was
not. You
aware
never heard about that?
No, sir.
But that was some of the concerns of GoFundMe, so that Ms. Leach and Mr. Wilson and so forth never shared that.
No, sir.
What about fuel providers who then decided to stop providing fuel? Did you ever hear about any of them getting threats?
From the convoy?
Yes. Well, from Convoy.
No, sir.
Honestly, I stopped saying stopped. All right.
Honestly, no. I don't recall information about fuel providers being threatened.
Now, what about tow truck drivers? We've heard a lot about tow truck drivers. Were there any threats to tow truck drivers if they tried to assist law enforcement? Have you heard anything about that?
The first time I heard of it was from the police witnesses at this inquiry.
Right, right. And what about Mr. King? Did you ever view him in any way as a threat to any of the other convoy organizers?
Like a physical threat?
Yes.
No, sir.
You'd never heard of him threatening or intimidating any of the other leaders?
Mr. King came to the Swiss Hotel one evening, angry, and he ended up in a verbal altercation with Chad Arrows, I believe. I didn't learn about that until the following day. I was not there when that occurred.
Mr. King had a couple of very large people with him and was intimidating Mr. Arrows?
I don't know who he had with him. Okay. But Mr. King is a large man himself.
No doubt. Now, what about media? Now, I know obviously you're not very supportive or don't consume what you call legacy media, but you were aware and heard of that reporters for some of those organizations downtown were often being threatened while they were down trying to cover the Convoy demonstrations. You were aware of that, Mr. Bulford?
I was not aware of that. I did learn that I believe the R.C.M.P may have been providing security for some of those reporters. I saw one video just recently, like in the last 2 weeks, where I think Mr. McGregor, people were yelling in the background while he was trying to give a broadcast, but that was the first I'd ever seen of that.
Or Mr. Raymond Fillon with TVA was pushed to the ground.
I was not aware of that until you just said it.
Or Mr. Evan Solomon from CTV News had a beer can thrown at his head.
I was not aware of that either.
You haven't seen any other videos, or just on your own walkabouts, ever seen reporters for CBC or Global, whatnot, of crowds swarming around them and yelling at them?
No, not that I recall. I remember some mainstream reporters approaching me the night that Miss Leach was arrested, when we were standing up by the stage truck, and they were trying to ask for interviews, and I just declined. But I don't recall anyone being threatening towards them at all.
Okay. So you didn't see any of those things?
No, sir.
Okay. And then the legacy media, as you call it, you believe that they were misrepresenting the convoy. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
And so when you say legacy media, you're talking about CTV, CBC, Global News, Post Media, all of those.
Well, I would definitely say CBC, CTV, Global. You're accurate in that.
Okay.
Post Media, I'm not so much. But also, I would throw in the Toronto Star is probably the worst offender, in my opinion.
Okay. And then, so was it your understanding and belief that they were all kind of working together in some way to cover the convoy in a certain way?
Well, it's been my experience, Mr. Champ, that they've been reporting very similar to each other for at least the last 2 years.
I thought your early testimony was that you weren't really watching them during the convoy. Were you watching them, or you weren't watching them?
I didn't really have time to watch them that much, sir. I did review a few articles that people would send me. Like, for instance, the article detailing one of the local Ottawa residents who had been arrested early on in the convoy for carrying weapons in a public place.
Right.
And they wrote the article. I believe I saw it in the Toronto Star and CBC.
But just the whole phrase legacy media, I'm just trying to understand what that means. Legacy media, that means like old media that can't be trusted?
It's another name for the mainstream. The big outlets that that seem to have, I don't know if you'd call it a monopoly, but they dominate the television.
Sure.
Right?
But all journalists, they all have an agenda that's counter to the people that you support. Is that what your understanding is?
I did not say all journalists do. I can't say that. I can't say that all journalists do, but I've seen many concerning remarks come from the legacy media. Yes.
Just last point, Mr. Bulford. I heard Mr. Nijikovsky from the Ottawa Police Service. Oh no, I apologize. Maybe it was the Commission Council asking about racist flags that were being carried around during the protest, and I believe you were implying in your testimony that you didn't think those were real convoy protesters, that there were others who might have been infiltrating.
Yes, I suspect that's the case.
But you don't have any evidence for that?
Well, I did see a photograph
Yeah.
of a gentleman who I know to be a photographer that follows Mr. Trudeau around on a regular basis, taking a close-up shot of a gentleman carrying a Confederate flag.
Because Confederate flags can be viewed as a racist flag, is that right?
That's correct. It appeared staged to me.
Right, and you didn't think that there was anyone involved in the convoy who brought Confederate flags to the protest, right?
Not that I was aware of. What the video, I seen the video of a masked man, like wearing a winter balaclava, walking through the crowd with a Confederate flag. And the video that I saw was a number of protesters telling him to get out of there because he wasn't welcome, and they didn't want that type of symbol being associated to the convoy.
Right. All the convoy people left their Confederate flags at home, Mr. Barnes.
Sir, I don't know what beliefs all of the people that came to Ottawa hold, and I don't know what they have in their possession. That would be purely speculation on my part.
All right, thank you.
Well, that was, that was, damn, that was something that I just sat in on. Okay, first thing I want to just say, like, my phone is dying as usual. It's at 12%, so I just want to, I'm going to say some stuff, and then the Westboro district is that way, that can wait till another time. I'm going down to, Bayward Market to actually put my friggin' resumes at places, and also just to see some stuff, get something to eat, because I'm starving. So, first thing I want to say off the bat, my opinion, that, the last lawyer that was speaking, the defense of, so I was actually a bit off. So this hearing has mainly, for the most part, been, whoever this guy is, he was the organizer of the Convoy protest, or at least he was the main organizer, or I guess the de facto leader of the movement, who has been like dubbed the de facto leader. I forget what they said his name was. It's probably going to be all over the news in a few hours. It's probably, hell, I'm sure some of it was live to most of the major, even, I guess, moderately large news organizations in Ottawa, and going live across Canada. So, first thing I want to say, the lawyer, who was the last one that, before I stopped the footage, lawyer speaking, God, the amount of manipulation on that man, oh my God, Jesus Christ. In fact, the amount of, good Lord, every lawyer that was, or, like, defense attorney, or, I think actually, I don't think a single one, well, defense attorney for the police force, I don't think, for the policing systems of Ottawa and the federal, policing systems, I don't think there was a single defense attorney for the actual head of the movement. At least, none, it wasn't their turn to speak for the entire time that I was in the court hearing. But God, that defense lawyer for the police, what was, I literally just did a video on psychological manipulation. What was literally the last comment he made about, like, right, I'm sure they all left their Confederate flags at home. Just, that's incredibly dismissive, very dismissive, at least in quite a few seconds, especially at quite a few intervals, especially at that point. And I guess that would be a form of, do I want to say, no, it's not, I guess, yeah, technically I guess you could say straw manning or straw lining would be that form of manipulation, or you could also, maybe it was a combination of straw manning and gaslighting. Either way, Jesus Christ, that was, God, what a dickhead. I mean, hey, going off of psychology, and I'm not I don't want to say all lawyers, because it's not true of all, in my opinion, but lawyers do, unfortunately, attorney positions do rank as one of the highest for, well, highest employments for psychopaths, so, well, god damn. Okay, so my takeaway from that, trying to read the room somewhat, it was tense. There were people on both sides. I guess there was definitely more people from the actual convoy movement in the crowd. And at bit of a busy intersection here. Yeah, it's okay, maybe that was just in support of the people standing out front here. Also, I don't know why she's wearing a rainbow, she's donning a rainbow flag. I don't know if, I guess that maybe it's just because, okay, maybe she's not actually protesting, like, well, maybe she is protesting their, well, the movement of, like, what they were trying to do in terms of their rights to access across the border, but I don't, that she might be protesting, like, a lot of their more right-wing views or conservative views. I don't know. It seems pretty, what they're doing out in front there seems quite performative in some regard, at least right now. She seemed a little bit, I guess, egotistical, but, and a bit overly confident, but anyway, I digress. So, the room was mainly full of convoy members, or people who supported the convoy. There were those who were on the opposing side, or just spectators, I guess. I don't know how many, well, I'm sure there was a few more spectators other than just me in there. It was open to the public. But the man on trial, okay, I don't think I need to go over the whole, I think they gave the whole synopsis of his life story somewhat, for the most part. From the sounds of it, again, from what he was saying in terms of his political rhetoric, he seemed to be more either center-right or just full-blown centrist. He was very composed during the entire thing. He was very direct. Well, no, I'm mixing up with the lawyers. He was a bit, well, he was trying to get to, he was more precise in what he was trying to get to in terms of point, but he was also a bit disjointed in terms of speech, it seemed, or thought pattern. But he was attentive as well. Seemed more stern. And again, egotistical, as it seemed. Not heavily, but at least to a certain extent. He was the leader of the group. I couldn't... There might have been a bit of subtle, again, if some of his beliefs may lean or favor towards center-right. One of the comments he made kind of sounded subtly racist, I don't know. Again, he was not defending the blatant racism of the Confederacy flag from, well, the southern U.S. the Confederate States of America during the American Civil War. He was denouncing that, at least somewhat. Well, not entirely denouncing, but he was just more so, I can't speak to everyone's beliefs there, as he specifically said. And Anyway, yeah, one of the comments he made about the Cuban man, now that might have just been a nervous laugh, just because he found the incident a bit funny, or could have been some subtle racism, like I can't believe that a Cuban person would agree with our movement. And again, I don't know that person, so I don't know the full story of that, so I'm not going to say anything more than that. I don't know. But yeah, they seemed very composed, was attentive. Some of the points he brought up were a bit contradictory, but not to a point where I think like, oh, he was aware of certain actions that maybe he was, for all I know he could have been putting on a persona. But in that moment, it didn't seem like anything indicative of him being purposely misleading. If there was anything that he might have skipped over, or something that seemed contradictory. The fucking lawyers, though. Jesus Christ. Even the last one I just listened to when I turned the camera off, they were more subdued, it seemed, in terms of tone and their personality. But even so, well, obviously you can be subdued and still be encroaching and still be problematic, so even they were just very manipulative. Good God. Okay, here's the thing. After hearing that, I'm still, I guess, more so in favor from the evidence provided. I'm still in the favor of, from that little meeting anyway, that the government should not have employed the Emergencies Act. There wasn't any major threats of violence. There were some, like I said, it seemed that there was some violent incidents, but for the most part, at least the leader was not aware of them, or that most of the protesters were trying to denounce said violent actions during the actual protests, which even back like when all this was happening, beginning of 2022, yeah, I could definitely, I recall at least hearing things about that. Fuck, my phone is dying. Okay, I'm gonna get to a place to charge my phone, and then probably do another video of exploring Byward Market. And oh yeah, another place that I'm going to drop off, well, main place I actually was going to drop on my resume was the Playmate strip club, because the owner, I went and talked to them, told me I should come back on Friday, and it's Friday from the last time that I actually spoke to them. And I talked about that briefly, that I went over to the Playmate to ask about, well, possible work position in my last video, and because things with the Newton don't seem to be working out, because I haven't received any callbacks. So yeah, thanks for what. This video didn't turn out near how I thought it was going to. And again, that kind of is usually how a lot of shit goes on this channel, at least as of recent. So yeah, here's just a nice shot of some modernized North American style buildings and a chapel in between them. And why not just get one shot of the Canadian Archival Library, just for good measure. I still don't know why they held it here. Like, the lady up front was explaining it to someone that, like, well, it's good enough in terms of space to hold meetings like this. Would have assumed, okay, so one of the buildings I actually showed must have been well, I know I showed the building that was the Senate, where I corrected myself, and then, the other one was the what was the other one? Well, it wasn't the Senator's Hall. Well, it wouldn't just probably be the Senate. Oh, whatever. It was the one across from, right before Chateau La Rear, whatever. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna get to Bayward Market. Figure out what to do next from that. Yeah. Also, if you're wondering what happened to why at a certain point I was freaking out about my wheel over there when my phone was in my pocket, okay, the wheel clicked off and like it fell off a bit. Well, not a bit. It fell off, like popped off when I went over a curb, right over there. And you know how I said I couldn't. The wheel, when I was going back to where I was situated in Orleans from buying this thing in the first place, and the front wheel, like the little mini wheels, just like it vanished into thin air. Same thing just happened with this bit to the wheel on this side. Literally, the wheel fell off, didn't go far at all, it was right beside me. I have no idea where it went. I was literally just looking around there. You probably hear it in the audio. I genuinely have no clue where. I'm not even frustrated by this point with both. I'm just amazed. Like, I think my cart is just magical, and it has the most inconvenient magical powers of just making its own, like, parts disappear. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna get over to Bayward. Bye. Well, people are sharing their sentiments about the conference. I guess word has gotten out. Also, you have got to be shitting me. Self-righteous, performative motherfuckers.